Welcome back everyone, and welcome to today's video. And in today's video we are going to learn how to make this 3D printable protein funnel within Fusion 360. So with that said, let's get started. So to get started, the first thing we need to do here is to create a new component. Let's go ahead and create a new component, and let's name this component to protein funnel. From here, let's go ahead and create another component, and this is going to be the main design we're going to work with right now. And let's name this to funnel. From here, let's go ahead and start creating our design. So let's go ahead and create a sketch, select the front plane here. And now what we need to do here is to create a total of 6 lines. From the origin, going up, this is going to be 65 millimeters. From the origin, going to the right, this is going to be 12 millimeters. From our line going up, this is going to be 15. Create one more line going out. This is going to be about 28. And for the degrees, you don't need to set a number. For now, let's just leave it around 30. Going up, make sure this matches with this dot here. And let's close off the sketch here. Now you should have a total of 6 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Additionally, we also need to set a dimension for this top piece here. Pressing D on our keyboard, and let's set this to 36 millimeters. Additionally, one thing we need to add here is to round out these corners here, since currently this funnel has a very odd shape, and very likely that if we have something being put in here, it's going to kind of get stuck around these edges here. So by pressing S on our keyboard, typing in fillet, we can select these outer corners here and drag this into about 12.5 millimeters. So now if we take a good look, we have kind of like a general look of a partial funnel, and that's what we're looking for. So from here, let's go ahead and press S on our keyboard, type in revolve, and selecting that profile we just selected, selecting the Z axis. Now we have this funnel completely revolved around 360 degrees, creating the body. Additionally, now we need to create a hollow this inside as well, so that way we have somewhere to put stuff in. Pressing S on our keyboard, typing in shell, selecting the top and the bottom. This is going to be 2.5 millimeters. Once more, going from the very top, pressing O on your keyboard, select this outer edge and drag this in to about negative 1.25. Pressing E on your keyboard, selecting this newly created profile we just made, and drag this down to about negative 6 millimeters. So this part that we just created is going to be the piece that hooks onto the cap that we're going to make later on in this video. So let's go ahead and create the thread for this. So by pressing S on our keyboard, type in thread, we can select this front face here, select modeled, and now as you can see, currently Fusion 360 is creating a thread for us with the size of 70 millimeters. But currently this is not accurate. This is not what we want. We actually want this to wrap around the entire design and not kind of have this cutout piece here. So we can go ahead and increase the size gradually to kind of see what works best. So if we jump anywhere from 72 to 75, you can kind of see 75 gives us an error. So somewhere between 72 and 75 is our sweet spot, but currently Fusion doesn't have that available for us. So what we can do is just select 72 and change the designation to maybe 72 times 3. Now we should have a total of 1, 2, 3. So 3 threads here. After that's done, press OK. Now, if we take a good look, this is our thread that we've made for the top. We can also use the press pull feature within Fusion to create some clearance for the cap. So by pressing S on our keyboard, type in press pull. We can select this top face and this bottom face, and we can offset this by negative 0.05. Press enter. Now we have the top piece with our thread. Let's go ahead and repeat the exact same process for the bottom. Pressing O on our keyboard, selecting this bottom face, drag this in about negative 1.25, pressing E on our keyboard, selecting this newly created profile, and typing in negative 6 millimeters. Doing the exact same thing, S on our keyboard, type in thread, selecting this face, modeled, change the size to 24. And 24 seems to be the sweet spot for this piece here. Let's go ahead and maybe change the designation to 2.5. And this looks good to me. After that's done, press OK. Now we need to do is add that press pull that we did earlier. Pressing S on our keyboard, type in press pull, selecting the top and the bottom, negative 0.05. Press OK. Now we have the thread for the bottom and we have the thread for the top. Pretty short, sweet, and simple, and didn't even take us more than 5 minutes to do it. Now what we need to do here is create the lid for this funnel here. So by selecting our protein funnel, creating a new component, let's go ahead and name this component to lid. Now what we want to do is to sketch on this face at the very top, and this is at the very top of our design. So creating a new sketch, selecting this top face here, we can use that as a reference to create a new sketch. Selecting the center diameter circle from the origin, we want to drag this out to about, let's say, 75 millimeters. And from here, let's go ahead and finish up our design. Maybe instead of 75, maybe 74. Just want to make sure it it's not sitting too far out. 73 instead. Cool. So it kind of sits out just a little bit. That's what I'm looking for. So I have the radius of the circle set to 73. Let's go ahead and select these three profiles, pressing E on our keyboard, selecting the direction to two sides. Side 1 is going to be set to 2, which is going up, and side 3 is going to be set to 6, since we extruded this down 6 millimeters. After that's done, press OK. And now we have the lid for our funnel. Let's toggle off our funnel since we don't need it. Create a shell for the top piece here. Select the bottom face, and let's shell this into about 2.5 since our funnel was shelled into about 2.5. Let's create the thread for the top piece. So pressing S, type in thread. Selecting the interface within our lid here. Select modeled. The size here is going to be anywhere between 72 to 75, but since we use 72, we're going to want to change the designation to 4. I do recall it was maybe a 4 or 3, I don't remember, so we can actually double check. Pressing S on our keyboard, type in section and analysis. And if we take a look at if the threads match up, let's see. And currently they don't. And I think it's because the designation was a different set. So maybe it was 3. I don't remember. We can go ahead and check back our original components. Check the thread for this. And it's 72. 72 times 3. For this, 72, 72 times 3. Cool. So as of right now, it currently looks as if this is protruding up, and as well as it currently also looks that these are polar opposites of each other. Now for this top piece here, this doesn't really matter because regardless, these threads are actually lining up, but currently in Fusion it doesn't look like it. And the way to kind of fix this is that we can press M on our keyboard, select the very center of our lid here, and we can rotate this to about 180 degrees. And as you can see, once we rotate it to match the funnel, you can see that they are perfectly in alignment. It's just that more so Fusion 360 is being a little silly, and usually when components move or change, and when you add threads, they're not always going to line up with the previous thread that you added. Additionally, you can see that this is kind of protruding upwards here, so this could possibly be an issue, not really. But in order to fix that, we can maybe shell this out, maybe a 2.25, maybe, or maybe a 2 instead of a 2.25. And there we go. Now our lid sits pretty much flush with the funnel that we have at the bottom. And that's our design there. Now what we need to do here is to create the cap for the bottom as well. So let's go ahead and create a new component. Let's name this cap. Let's go ahead and toggle off our section analysis, reorient to the bottom, create a new sketch using the top face at the bottom of the cap or the bottom of the thread. And let's create a center diameter circle, drag this out. This is going to be about 26 millimeters. Let's reorient this, selecting these three profiles, pressing E on our keyboard, setting the direction to two sides. Side 1 is going to be set to 2 millimeters, and side 2 is going to be set to 6 millimeters. After that's done, press OK. Now keep in mind, if I have lost you at any point, what we're essentially doing for the top is going to be basically done the exact same thing for the bottom. So don't worry if you feel as if there is any new steps. No, honestly, a lot of these steps are repeated. It just more or less looks different because we're adding two different threads and two different sizes of threads. But more or less, you're pretty much just matching up the threads to each other with these components. So with that said, let's go ahead and move forward. Let's toggle off the funnel, shell this design in, selecting the bottom face here. This is going to be 2.5. Create a thread for this inner cap. And this was about, I think it was a 24 modeled. So I think the size was 24 and M24 times 2.5. But of course, we can turn back on our funnel and use the section analysis to check, which is why this tool is immensely useful. And you can see that that's the right size for what we had. Or actually, let me just double check once more. So for example, if we check our thread for the funnel once more, our thread here was 24, 2.5, and our thread here is 24, 2.5. We can also shell this design a little bit more, so maybe shell this into 2.5 for the cap, or maybe a 2 instead, just to create some more clearance. And there we go. Now we have the cap for our design. Let's go ahead and rotate this just a bit. Maybe at some point there was some rotation going on. There you go. Now you can kind of see they're lined up with each other. And there's our funnel with the cap and the lid. Let's go ahead and reorient this. Turn off the section analysis. And now we have our 3D printed protein funnel. So for example, if you ever want to use protein powder and put it within your water or something like that, or your milk, now you have something to use it for. Now, at this point, we're pretty much done with this design, but we do want to finish off and add some details here. So let's go ahead and turn off the lid, since we'll actually be creating something for this little lip here for our funnel. Let's toggle back on our funnel, and let's go ahead and select this top face here. And this is the face that sits right below our thread. So this is not a thread here. This is just a face. Select that face, press O on your keyboard, and selecting the edge, drag this out to about 0.5 millimeters. From here, what we're going to do is create a lip for the funnel that we have here. So pressing E on our keyboard, selecting this new profile, and we can set the distance to maybe about 0.5 millimeters. And make sure when you do set the distance, it's actually going down, not up. So for here, it shows it's going up in the thread direction, which is not what we want. We can add the distance to negative 0.5. And in order to make this a little bit easier to 3D print, we can add a chamfer at the very bottom. And the chamfer is going to be 0.5 as well. Now if we turn on our lid and turn on the protein funnel, now you can see that we have kind of like this matching lip that kind of flows seamlessly with the cap that we have here, or the lid that we have here. Additionally, let's also go ahead and maybe add a chamfer. So we can add a chamfer to the cap here, or excuse me, the lid. Type in chamfer. Select this outer top piece here. Maybe chamfer this about 0.5, maybe a 1. And now it kind of has a little bit more of a chamfer on the edge. Maybe we add a chamfer for the cap. 1. And if we turn off our analysis, take a look at our design. Now we have this 3D printed funnel that we made within Fusion 360. Additionally, one thing I do want to add is that currently, since we have this funnel here, typically a lot of the funnels, they have like this kind of holder that you could essentially kind of put powder in, and it acts kind of like a measuring cup. So to quickly show you exactly what I'm referring to, let me just toggle off the lid, and let me quickly design that for you so you guys know what I'm referring to. So if you guys want to follow along and make this as well, let's go ahead and do it. So reorient to the top, create new sketch, and from here, if we're going to select that lip that we just created, select there, that face there, and from here we can create a center diameter circle going out Doesn't matter how far, just going out. We can set this to about 20 millimeters. From here, let's create a total of 2 lines that are tangent to the circle here. And maybe set the distance between the circle to this edge here 50 millimeters, maybe instead 60. What was 60? So 60 millimeters looks a little bit more organic. Pressing E on a keyboard, selecting this profile, drag this down, and press OK. This is the part I'm referring to. Looks like a measuring spoon at this point. The only reason I did not add this within this tutorial is because you would have to print supports. And additionally, we may need to drag this down a little bit more to kind of match what we're aiming for. But you can see here, you guys get the general idea. We drag this up too as well. This more than likely might affect our top piece, so maybe we add a chamfer here, so maybe it will not. 0.75, 0.8, 0.9, 1, so 0.95, somewhere around there. That way our lid kind of sits flush with what we got here. And I don't know why I didn't go here. 0.5. There you go. Now you have your kind of like your measurement spoon for your funnel here. But since I'm not going to be using this, and since I don't want to print supports for this, you can just use these last 2 features, right click and press suppress features, and it'll be as if you never used it. Additionally, if you wanted to add something to hook onto this, we can go ahead and toggle back our main sketch here. And then we create a small rectangle on the very side, doesn't matter where, but more or less on the side of it. Let's go ahead and toggle that. I just created a small rectangle. Let's turn on the sketch that made that rectangle. And if we were to create a revolve feature for this, so let me just drag this down just a bit, revolve. The profile is going to be set to this rectangle that we made. The axis is going to be that. And we're going to set the partial to maybe like 5 degrees. Select join, press OK. Now we have this kind of rectangle that sits on the side, and maybe we can make this a little bit neater and nicer. So we add a chamfer to this bottom edge, this edge here. Let's do it once more since it's being weird. Chamfer, drag this in. Uh-oh, it doesn't look like it's joined. So this has to be a new body here. Once more, chamfer. Add this. Okay, maybe because the sketch is not connected. It appears that it is. I'm not sure why it's not doing it correctly. Chamfer. Okay, not sure why it's doing that. It's supposed to match up, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and add our chamfer here. Now, at this point, it looks more like a trophy, but you guys could get the general idea. The only reason I'm adding a chamfer here is that so when we 3D print this, more or less, it depending on how you reorient this to 3D print it, it won't be that much of an issue. So if you're printing from this cap here going up, this should be going this way. But if you're printing it the other way, so for example, this way, from this bottom piece going up, then you would probably want to print it this way. That way you could avoid using supports, which is why we're adding this kind of chamfer here, if that makes sense. Additionally, if you wanted to, you can add like a little hole here. Press OK. Now you kind of have like your fingers can kind of nest on this thing a little bit. You can hold it, and you have a little hole here, so you could probably put a keychain. You could attach this to your backpack or something. It's more or less trying to mimic like the real protein holder that we have that you usually buy in most convenience stores. But with that said, that pretty much wraps up today's video. Let's go ahead and send this off to our slicer here to see what this looks like. So here we have our design here. Let's go ahead and reorient this. And if we take a look, if we print this, there is our protein funnel within Fusion 360. Start from the bottom, going all the way up, and there we have our thread. Additionally, one additional thing I want to add is that since we're using threads and the walls are kind of thin, you're also going to want to change the settings from strength within walls. You're going to want to make sure to select detect within walls. If you don't have this toggle, this is what's going to show up. Now, some of you might have some errors if you don't have detect within walls turned on. I've had some instances where if I don't have it turned on, it kind of has like some weird issues going on here. But in this case, since it didn't show up, we'll just have it turned on anyway. And more or less, this should be the general look of our design. And since we're using threads, I probably would change this to a 0.08 just to get those details in as much as possible. And there's our 3D printed thread, or our funnel. Let's go ahead and import the lid. Save as mesh. Let's reorient this. Exact same thing from the cap. Save as mesh. Let's reorient this. Whoops, one more. If we take a look at how much time it takes to print, 0.08 with the 0.4 nozzle. It's going to take us about 3 hours to print and a total of 50 grams of filament to print this out. So there is some support material we may need to use for that bottom piece, but it's not that big of a deal. But that pretty much wraps up today's video. Hopefully you guys have found it insightful and informative. So with that said, that pretty much wraps up today's tutorial. Let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section of this video. If you guys like this video, feel free to like this video. And if you guys want to see more content just like this, you can make more 3D printed designs. Make sure to subscribe to the channel down below. That way you get notified as soon as new videos come out. I try to release at least one new video per day. So that way you guys can watch it, learn how to make it, and 3D print it. As well as if you guys haven't joined already, make sure to join the 3D printing community down below in the description. We have over 300 members in this community, and more or less if you need any feedback or help on anything 3D printing related, whether it's 3D printing, CAD, making money with 3D printing, or more or less 3D printing in general, make sure to join the community. So with that said, this is Brandon signing out, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.